Dear viewer, everything you are about to hear is true. I am saying that as a disclaimer, simply because I know just how insane everything I'm about to say is. With that in mind, let's get cracking with 7 unbelievable military blunders. Number 7. The capture of Guam. When going to war, it is important that everyone involved knows that they are at war. This lesson clearly doesn't translate well to Spanish because in 1898, the Spanish island of Guam had no idea that the Spanish-American War was a thing. 2 months after Pulitzer and Hearst of Newsies fame successfully blamed the Maine on Spain, the USS Charleston arrived in Guam ready for a major nautical battle. Instead, all they were met with was a few citizens on shore excited to see them. Confused, the Charleston sailed around and fired 13 shots at the island. The captain of the port assumed that the ship was saluting them, and so went on a vessel with a small party to welcome the Americans. Once on board, they apologized for not returning the salute as they didn't have any ammunition, at which point the U.S. soldiers politely informed them that Spain and America were at war, and that they were now prisoners of that war. The island of Guam promptly surrendered and remains a U.S. territory. Number 6. The Great Emu War. After World War I, the Australian government gave former soldiers plots of land in the hopes that the increase of agriculture would help the country through the Great Depression. Unfortunately, they were interrupted by tens of thousands of emus, whose regular migratory patterns happened to intersect with the new farming territories. So what do you do if large flightless birds are eating and destroying your crops? Well, if you're the Australian Minister of Defence, you give military personnel machine guns and have some target practice. This is how, for a month in 1932, the Australian militia tried and failed to wipe emus off the face of the earth. The militarily cunning emus really impressed Major G.P.W. Meredith, who said, quote, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks." To the military's credit, they did face a string of bad luck, with guns jamming, inclement weather, and emus being able to survive being shot multiple times. Number 5. The Cornfield Bomber. Admittedly, this one is less of a military blunder and more of a funny military story, but 7 is my favorite number, which means I had to pad the list a little bit, so here goes. Not every plane crash results in the survival of the pilot, and certainly not every plane crash results in the survival of the pilot and the plane staying intact, but that's what happened with the Cornfield Bomber. In February of 1970, Captain Gary Faust was flying a Convair F-106 Delta Dart through training exercises when the plane went into a spin that Faust couldn't get out of. As a last-minute resort, Faust ejected, and the force of his ejection actually made the plane correct itself, prompting one of the other pilots to radio Faust and say, "You better get back in it." The plane proceeded to calmly land in a field in Montana, where authorities were ordered to let it run out of fuel before even approaching it. Number 4. The Battle of New Orleans. Andrew Jackson, 7th President, slave owner, and war hero. Right? Jackson made a name for himself as Major General in the War of 1812 as the leader who won the Battle of New Orleans on January 18, 1815. This is all well and good until you realize that the Treaty of Ghent, which ended the War of 1812, was signed on December 24, 1814, a full 25 days before Jackson's battle. America. Number 3. The Siege of Charleston. If you must retreat in a battle, be sure you have ample land to run to and a well-thought-out escape plan. The American troops involved in the Siege of Charleston clearly missed that memo as they chose the peninsula of Charleston as the prime location to run away from the Redcoats. This resulted in one of the worst American defeats of the Revolutionary War, as the troops found themselves surrounded by water on 3 sides and British soldiers on the 4th side. Number 2. The Battle of Chancellorsville. What do you know about Stonewall Jackson? Unless you're a Civil War fanatic or are a fan of John C. Reilly's performance as the ghost of Stonewall in Anchorman 2, you probably don't know much about him. You also probably don't know how he died. Thomas Stonewall Jackson died unceremoniously during the Battle of Chancellorsville in the spring of 1863 when he was returning from a reconnaissance mission and was shot by friendly soldiers who thought he was an enemy. Jackson was shot 3 times but didn't die until a week later when he succumbed to pneumonia. Number 1. The Battle of Bladensburg. Often called the greatest disgrace ever dealt to American arms, the Battle of Bladensburg was the American retreat that led to the burning of Washington during the War of 1812. This was the result of poor communication and a lack of retreat strategy on the part of the Americans. As a result, after the retreat was ordered, only some of the troops got the message while others kept trying to fight. Eventually, those troops decided to flee as well, but because they didn't know where to go, they simply ran wherever they could to avoid capture. thus paving a path so the British could reach Washington, D.C. and burn it to the ground. Love, the know-it-all. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments section below what topic I should cover next.